Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are tackling a topic that I think makes even the most confident people among us sweat a little bit. We are talking about negotiation.
Hmm. Just the word itself is stressful.
It is. And, before you roll your eyes and think, great, another lecture on how to dominate the boardroom, I want you to look at that stack of business books on your nightstand. You know those I'm talking about.
Oh, I know them well. The ones with the power ties on the cover.
The power ties, the crossed arms, the titles that promise you a perfect script. They tell you exactly what to say, exactly when to pause, and like how to get to yes in 3 easy linear steps.
It's presented as a science, almost like a chemistry experiment. Mix A and B, get C.
Right. And here is the problem I have with those books, and I suspect you, our listener, have this problem too.
Yeah.
We read them, we highlight them, we memorize the lines.
You prep your whole win-win scenario. You've got it all mapped out.
I prep my win-win. I walk into the room feeling like, I don't know, James Bond. I sit down, I deliver my perfect opening line, and then the other person opens their mouth, says something completely off the wall, and my entire script just goes up in flames.
Oof.
It's gone. And I'm sitting there panicking because the book didn't tell me what to do when the other guy doesn't follow the script.
It is the classic Mike Tyson quote, right? Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Exactly. And that punch in the mouth, that moment of chaos, is where we are starting today. We're diving deep into a book that basically looks at those scripts and says, throw them away.
Well, maybe not throw them away entirely, but definitely stop treating them like a Bible.
Okay, fair. The book is called The Art of Negotiation: How to Improvise Agreement in a Chaotic World, and it's by Michael Wheeler.
And just to set the stage a bit, Michael Wheeler isn't some guy who just has a theory about improv comedy. He's a professor at Harvard Business School. He has spent his entire career studying not just business deals, but diplomats, sports agents, people who have to negotiate when the world is literally burning down around them.
That's what drew me to this book. He argues that negotiation isn't a science. It's not engineering, it's jazz, it's improvisation. But I have to be honest with you, when I hear improvisation in a business context, my stomach tightens a little. It
That's
sounds
reckless.
reckless. It sounds like winging it.
Yeah.
And winging it when millions of dollars are on the line is not a good feeling.
And I hear that skepticism a lot. We love process, we love checklist, we love the idea that if we put inputs A and B into the machine, we get result C every single time.
There's predictability.
But Wheeler's whole point is that negotiation involves another human being. And human beings are not machines. They are irrational, they're emotional, and they're wildly unpredictable. If you treat negotiation like a static process, just moving from point A to point B, you are going to crash the moment the road curves.
So the mission for this deep dive then is to figure out how to drive when there is no roadmap. How do we stay agile when the stakes are high, the other person is difficult, and the ground is literally shifting under our feet?
It's a huge question.
It is. So we're going to look at something called the deal triangle, which is supposed to replace the idea of a bottom line. We're going to talk about comping, which is a term from jazz, and we're even going to get into some military strategy with something called the OODA loop.
It is a full toolkit for managing chaos, not for avoiding it.
I like that distinction. But we have to start with the story that opens the book. It's the story of a guy named Jay Sheldon. And I want to spend some real time on this because when I first read it, I thought, okay, this guy just got lucky. But the more I looked at it, the more I realized there was a method to his madness.
It is a perfect case study because it starts with a very, very typical business problem.
Right.
Jay Sheldon is a private equity manager, very sharp guy. A few years back, he buys a small cable television company in the Midwest for about $8 million.
And this is a bit of a test run for him, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't really a cable guy by trade.
No, not at all. He was a finance guy. But he saw an opportunity. He buys it, he cleans up the balance sheet, he improves the customer service, streamlines operations. It's a success. So logically, his next thought is expansion.
Of course.
He looks at a map and sees a neighboring cable system in the next town over.
Strategy 101. You get economies of scale. You merge the two systems. You cut your overhead. You make more money. It's the standard playbook.
Exactly. So Sheldon puts on his analyst hat. He sits down and he crunches the numbers. He looks at the cash flow, the subscriber base, the state of the infrastructure, all the hard data. And he calculates that this neighbor system is worth about $11 million.
Okay, so $11 million is the fair market value, the objective truth, according to a spreadsheet.
Right. But Sheldon is a pro. He knows you have to stretch a little to get a deal done. You don't just offer the exact value. So he tells himself, I can go up to 12 million, but not a penny more.
So he sets his limit.
He sets his hard limit, his walkaway point. If he pays more than 12 million, the debt service on the loan kills the profit. The whole deal becomes a loser for him. So $12 million is his absolute unshakable ceiling.
Okay, so he's prepped. He knows his number. He calls up the owner of this neighboring system. And this, of course, is where the script falls apart immediately.
The owner is, well, let's just call him old school. He's stubborn. He tells Sheldon, basically, look, son, I didn't put a for sale sign in my yard. You came to me. If you want this company, you put $15 million cash on my desk. Otherwise, get off my lawn.
Whoa. Okay, let's just pause and look at the map here for a second.
Mhm.
Sheldon's absolute max is $12 million. The seller's absolute minimum is $15. That's a $3 million gap on what is, a relatively small deal.
In negotiation theory, this is what we call a negative bargaining zone.
The negative bargaining zone. Can you explain that for the listener who hasn't done an MBA?
It's pretty simple, actually.
Yeah.
Imagine two circles on a line. One is the buyer's range, everything they're willing to pay. For Sheldon, that's from 0 up to 12 million. The other circle is the seller's range, everything they're willing to accept. For this guy, that's from 15 million up to infinity. Usually for a deal to happen, you want those circles to overlap. That little bit of overlap is the bargaining zone. It's the space where a deal is possible. In this case, there is a gap of empty air between them. There's literally no price that works for both parties.
So by the book, by any traditional rational logic, this deal is dead. A rational actor stands up, shakes hands, and leaves the room. End of story.
Precisely. And most people would either walk away or they'd try to argue. They'd say, your equipment is old, your subscriber churn is high, you're not worth 15 million.
Which would just tick the old guy off and make him even more stubborn.
Exactly. It would make him dig in deeper. It's my company. It's my price. Sheldon realized that arguing about the valuation was a complete dead end. The wall was just too high. So he didn't try to climb the wall. He walked around it.
This is the pivot point.
Yeah.
This is the moment of genius. What did he do?
He looked at the seller and he asked a question that seemed to come completely out of nowhere. He said, okay, you know this market better than I do. If your system is worth $15 million, what is my system worth?
Hang on, why is he asking about his own company? He's supposed to be the buyer. It seems totally irrelevant.
That's the brilliance of it. He is gathering information, he's probing. The seller, he thinks for a moment, strokes his chin and says, well, your system is a little smaller than mine. I'd say yours is worth about $14 million.
Hold on a minute. Sheldon bought his system for $8 million just a year ago.
Correct. And remember, Sheldon's own cold, hard math says these systems are worth about 11 or 12 million max. But this seller, he has a different view of reality. The seller thinks these little cable systems are absolute gold mines.
So in that single second, the entire world just flipped upside down for Sheldon.
It's a total improvisational breakthrough. Sheldon realized, I came in here thinking I was a buyer, but if this guy wants to pay $14 million for my system, well then I should be a seller.
He abandoned his script. His entire script said, buy competitor. He just threw it out and wrote a brand new one on the spot, sold a competitor.
And that is exactly what he did. He sold his company to the neighbor for $14 million, plus or minus some adjustments. He made a massive profit, nearly doubled his money in about 12 months, and walked away completely happy.
That is just wild. But here's my question, and I think it's the important one. Is that replicable? Because it really sounds like he just stumbled into a crazy situation with a delusional seller. How does that help me when I'm trying to negotiate a salary or a supplier contract?
That's the right question. And it helps because it illustrates the core philosophy of the book, agility over rigidity. Most of us are so focused on our goal, I must buy this house, I must get this raise, that we get tunnel vision. When an obstacle appears, like that $15 million price tag, we see it as a failure. We see it as a no.
Right, it's a brick wall.
Sheldon saw the obstacle as information. The high price wasn't a no, it was data. It told him, this man dramatically overvalues local cable assets.
So the lesson isn't try to flip every deal. The lesson is don't let your plan blind you to the reality that's actually sitting in front of you.
Exactly. You cannot script the other person. But if you pay close attention, they will tell you how to make a deal with them, even if it's not the deal you walked in expecting to make. They give you the clues.
Okay, but this brings up a huge tension for me, and I think for a lot of people in business. If the goal is to be agile and to improvise, does that mean we shouldn't prepare? Because if I tell my boss, hey, I'm not going to prep for the big merger meeting, I'm just going to go in and, jazz it up, I'm going to get fired.
And you should get fired. That is the single biggest misconception about improvisation.
Yeah.
People think it means making it up from scratch, just winging it. But think about a great jazz musician. Do they just walk on stage having never touched a saxophone before?
No, of course not. They've practiced scales for 10,000 hours. They know music theory better than anyone.
They prepare skills, not scripts.
Right.
They prepare to be able to react to anything. And Wheeler argues we need to prepare for negotiation differently. And the very first step is to kill the bottom line.
Whoa, whoa. Kill the bottom line. That is like the holy grail of negotiation advice. Know your BTNA, know your bottom line. It's in every book.
It is. But the problem with a bottom line like Sheldon's $12 million ceiling is that it's a tripwire. It's a static point. It's totally rigid. If you don't hit it, you fail. It creates a binary outcome, success or failure. There's no middle ground.
Yeah.
Wheeler suggests replacing it with something he calls the deal triangle.
The deal triangle. Okay, I must listen. Walk us through the geometry here.
Okay, so picture a triangle. At the bottom, you have your baseline. This is roughly your old bottom line. It's the deal you'd begrudgingly accept because, well, it's better than nothing. It's your walkaway point.
My floor. Got it.
At the top right, you have your target. This is the green, the home run, the deal you're bragging about later.
Okay, so floor and ceiling.
But the third point is the most important one. It's what he calls the stretch. This is the area of creativity. This is where you move beyond just one number.
The stretch, is that just, asking for more money or a lower price?
No, it's about widening the scope of the deal itself. It's about creating what Wheeler calls equivalent packages.
Equivalent packages. Okay, this sounds like where the math comes back in.
It is.
Yeah.
Let's take a simple salary negotiation. Let's say you want a salary of $120,000. That's your target. You go in and your boss says, look, the budget is totally frozen. I can only give you $100,000.
The classic line.
Right. Now, if you have a rigid bottom line of, say, $110,000, you walk away. You quit. It's a failure.
End of story.
But if you've prepared using the deal triangle, you have already calculated your equivalent packages. Before the meeting, you ask yourself, what is the cash value to me of an extra week of vacation? What is the cash value of working from home 2 days a week? What's the value of a guaranteed bonus versus a potential one?
But that's also subjective, isn't it? I mean, how do I put a real dollar value on working from home?
You have to do the work beforehand. It's part of the prep. You literally sit down with a spreadsheet and say, okay, my commute costs me $200 a month in gas and parking. It takes 10 hours of my life every week. I value my time at $50 an hour. So working from home 2 days a week is worth roughly $700 a month to me. You actually do the math for yourself.
I see. You're creating your own personal exchange rate.
Perfectly put. So when the boss says, I can only do $100K, you don't say no, you pivot. You say, I understand the budget constraint. I can make $100K work if we can also add 10 extra remote days for the year and a signing bonus of $5,000.
Ah, I see. You're trading coins of different currencies. To the
Yeah.
boss, remote days might feel like a free giveaway. It doesn't come out of her salary budget. But to you, they are worth a real $700.
Exactly. You are creating a flexible perimeter. You aren't descending a single number. You are defending a total value. It makes you incredibly hard to corner because if they block one path, you just slide over to another path on your triangle.
That makes so much sense. It's like being water instead of a rock.
Ugh.
But let's be real, sometimes the problem isn't the math. Sometimes the problem is that things just go wrong. Unexpected disasters pop up. How do you possibly prep for that?
You use a fascinating technique from the psychologist Gary Klein. It's called the pre-mortem.
I know the post-mortem. That's where we all sit in the conference room after the project fails and try to blame the interns.
Right. The pre-mortem is doing that before you even start. It's a kind of mental time travel exercise.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
You sit down with your team before the negotiation begins and you say, okay, everyone, I want you to imagine it is 1 year from now. The deal has completely collapsed. It is a total disaster. We are being sued. Our reputation is in tatters.
Yikes. That's a pretty bleak starting point.
It is. But then you ask the key question. Write the history of why it failed.
Why is this better than just asking what are the risks? I mean, we do risk assessments all the time.
Because when you ask, what are the risks? People are optimistic. They say, oh, there's a small chance of a supply chain issue, but we'll probably be fine. Our brains are wired for optimism. But when you say it has failed, you trick your brain. You strip away that optimism bias.
It becomes a forensic investigation, not a prediction.
Precisely. You start seeing the real cracks you were trying to ignore. It failed because the legal team hated the liability clause, or
Well,
it failed because their CEO has a massive ego and we didn't stroke it enough at the beginning.
it forces you to look at all the ugly stuff you're subconsciously trying to ignore.
You dig up the skeletons before you even enter the room, but, and this is just as crucial, you also have to do scenario B.
Which is?
It is 1 year later and the deal is a massive success. We are popping champagne. It's even better than we hoped. What happened?
Okay, why do we need to imagine the success? Don't we already want that to happen?
We want it, but we often don't see the specific path to it. By imagining the details of the success, you might realize, oh, it succeeded because we offered them a longer contract term that gave them the stability they were secretly worried about. It helps you spot hidden opportunities you might miss if you're only playing defense.
So it's like a flight simulator for business. You crash the plane safely in your head so you don't crash it in real life. And you also practice the perfect landing.
That is the perfect analogy. You are building muscle memory for disasters and opportunities that haven't happened yet.
Okay, so we've done the math with the deal triangle. We've done the time travel with the premortem. But now comes the part that I personally struggle with the most.
The human element.
The human element. I can be perfectly prepped at my desk. I'm calm. I'm rational. My spreadsheet is beautiful. But then I walk into the room and the other guy aggressive, or he's dismissive, or he just stares at me without saying anything.
The silent treatment. Classic.
And suddenly my heart rate is at 120, my palms are sweating, and I just want to get out of there. All that beautiful prep goes right out the window because I'm in fight or flight mode.
This is what Wheeler calls the emotion paradox. We cannot think clearly when our brains are flooded with adrenaline and cortisol, but negotiation, especially improvisation, requires us to be hyper-aware. He calls the state we need to achieve presence of mind.
Presence of mind. It sounds a little bit zen.
It is, but it's practical. He identifies 3 paradoxes that master negotiators seem to embody. First, calm and alert. Second, patient and proactive. And third, practical and creative.
Let's focus on that first one, calm and alert. Because usually if I'm calm, I'm almost sleepy, relaxed. And if I'm alert, I'm tense. My shoulders are up by my ears. How can you possibly be both at the same time?
Think of a surgeon. A surgeon cannot be panicking. If their hands shake, the patient dies. But they also can't be relaxed like they're on a beach. They have to be alert enough to notice a 1 millimeter drop in blood pressure. They are relaxed in their body, but laser focused in their mind.
Okay, that's a good image.
Wheeler contrasts 2 people to show this perfectly. One is Donald Dell, the famous sports agent.
The guy who represented Arthur Ashe and Michael Jordan, right? A legend.
The very same. There's a story where Dell is negotiating a massive endorsement deal for Ashworth Head, the tennis racket company. The room is packed with lawyers and executives. The tension is incredibly thick. Everyone is posturing and trying to look tough.
I can picture it.
And in the middle of this high-stakes stare-down, Donald Dell, he cracks a joke, a simple, lighthearted joke.
In the middle of a multi-million-dollar negotiation, that takes guts.
It does. But it breaks the tension instantly. Everyone laughs. The temperature in the room drops by 20 degrees. That is calm and alert. He was comfortable enough in the chaos to see that everyone was too tense, and he used humor as a tool to reset the entire room's emotional state.
Okay, so that's the master. Who's the amateur in this comparison?
Well, the amateur is a guy named Chris Robbins, and the great irony is Chris Robbins is an ER doctor.
Wait, an ER doctor? Those guys are the literal definition of calm under pressure. They deal with gunshot victims and car crashes.
Exactly. In the ER, when a patient is dying on the table, Robbins is a rock. He is calm and alert. He relies on his training. He's a total pro.
But
you put him in a negotiation for his own salary or a dispute with a hospital administrator. He completely falls apart. He gets defensive. He gets angry. He starts to stammer. He loses his cool.
But why? Why does the skill not transfer over? It's the same brain.
Because the stakes are personal. In the ER, he is a professional solving a technical problem. In the negotiation, his ego is on the line. He's thinking, what if they don't think I'm worth it? What if they reject me? The fear blinds him.
That is fascinating.
It tells us that emotional control is domain-specific.
Yeah.
Just because you are a confident engineer or a confident parent doesn't mean you will automatically be a confident negotiator. It's a separate skill you have to train.
That is actually really reassuring to hear. It means I'm not broken. I just haven't trained for this specific emotional domain. So how do we train for it? I know Wheeler has this centering exercise, and I want to actually walk through this because the usual advice to just take a deep breath isn't enough for me.
No, deep breathing is just managing the physiology. We need to engage the brain. It's a 6-step diagnostic that you can do in 2 minutes. Step 1, name the emotion. Don't just feel bad. Ask yourself, what am I feeling specifically? I am feeling anxiety, or I am feeling intimidated.
Just naming it is supposed to engage the prefrontal cortex, right? It kind of dampens the amygdala, the panic button in our brain.
Exactly. You're moving from feeling to thinking about feeling, which gives you distance. Step 2, identify the trigger. Why am I anxious? I'm anxious because that guy across the table reminds me of my judgmental father. Or I'm anxious because I really need this money for my mortgage.
You're isolating the variable that's causing the feeling.
Step 3, step to the other side. This is crucial. Ask yourself, what is he feeling? Maybe he's yelling because he's under immense pressure from his own boss. This simple act turns your fear into curiosity. And curiosity is the antidote to anxiety.
I like that. It's hard to be scared of someone when you're dissecting them like a frog.
A little morbid, but yes.
Okay.
Step 4, set the target state. How do I want to feel during this meeting? I want to feel focused and light, or I want to feel curious and creative.
So you're setting an intention.
Exactly. Step 5 is the bridge. What can I do right now to get from how I feel to how I want to feel? Maybe I need to stand up and walk around the block. Maybe I need to put on a specific playlist. Maybe I just need to look at a picture of my kids to get some perspective.
But what's the last step?
Step 6.
The aftermath. How do I want to feel when this is over? I want to walk out knowing I didn't fold. I want to feel proud that I stuck to my process.
Yeah.
If you run through these 6 steps in your car before you walk into the building, you aren't repressing your emotions. You are processing them. You are clearing the cache so your RAM is free to improvise.
Clearing the cache,
Yeah.
like that tech analogy. Okay, so we are prepped, we are centered, we are ready. We walk into the room. Now we get to the core metaphor of the entire book, jazz.
And I have to play devil's advocate here. I work in a pretty corporate environment. If I start talking about jazz and jamming and vibes, the CFO is going to laugh me out of the room. Business is serious. Jazz is, well, it's messy.
Jazz looks messy to the outsider, but to the musician, it is highly structured. That is the key. Jazz isn't random noise. It follows a chord progression. It has a tempo. It has rules. Wheeler brings in Wynton Marsalis, the jazz legend, to explain this.
Right.
In a jazz ensemble, everyone is listening intently to everyone else. If the drummer speeds up a little, the bassist matches him instantly. They are co-creating the reality in real time. In a bad negotiation or a bad band, everyone is just playing their own solo, completely ignoring what the others are doing.
That sounds like every political debate I've ever seen. Just 2 people talking over each other, waiting for their turn to speak.
Exactly. Wheeler calls that loading the bullet. While you're talking, I'm not really listening to what you're saying. I'm just rehearsing my brilliant comeback in my head. I'm waiting for you to shut up so I can fire my bullets.
And that completely kills improvisation. You can't react to reality if you aren't even listening to it.
You can't. So the first technique here is a specific kind of listening called comping.
Comping.
In jazz, comping, which is short for accompanying, is what the piano player does when the trumpet is taking a solo. The pianist listens to the notes the trumpet plays and then plays chords that match and support those notes. He literally makes the soloist sound better.
Wait, hold on. In a negotiation, this guy is my opponent. Why in the world would I want to make him sound better? If he's demanding a low price and I comp him, aren't I just agreeing to lose money?
No, this is the key distinction. Comping is not agreeing. Comping is validating. It's confirming and checking for understanding. Let's role play this for a second. Be a difficult client. Demand something totally unreasonable.
Okay, look, your software is way too expensive.
Yeah.
I can get basically the same thing from your competitor for half the price. I want a 50% discount or I'm walking.
Okay, so the normal non-comping response would be, that's impossible. Our quality is far better. You're comparing apples and oranges. You're wrong. What's the result of that?
Right. I feel attacked. I dig in. We fight.
Now, here is the comping response.
No.
Okay, I hear you. It sounds like budget is a massive priority for you right now, and you're looking at the market and seeing a really big spread in prices. You need to be able to justify every single dollar.
Okay. Yeah, I feel heard. I feel like you get my problem. My guard goes down a little.
Exactly. Notice I didn't agree to the discount at all. I just validated your reality. I played a chord that matched your melody. And because I did that, your blood pressure drops. You think, this person is listening to me.
Yeah.
Now, and only now, can I pivot the conversation. Now I can say, since budget is the main driver, let's look at a stripped-down version of our package that could hit that number for you. Or let's talk for a minute about the long-term cost of ownership of that cheaper option. I can only lead you somewhere new after I have comped you.
That is a very subtle but incredibly powerful shift. It's the difference between saying but and saying yes and.
Yes, and is the golden rule of improv comedy, and it's the same here. Yes, I see your problem, and D here is a potential solution.
But doesn't this get risky? If I'm always adjusting to them, if I'm always comping, do I just become a pushover? Wheeler talks about something called provocative competence. That sounds like a complete contradiction.
It does. It comes from Frank Barrett, who's both a jazz pianist and a management scholar. He says that great jazz musicians play about 80% of the time within their comfort zone. They rely on their training, their scales, their licks that they know work. That keeps the song grounded and coherent.
Okay, the 80% is safety.
But the other 20% of the time, they deliberately push themselves into chaos. They play a note they aren't totally sure will work. They change the rhythm unexpectedly.
But why? Why risk the mistake? Why risk playing a wrong note?
Because if you are 100% safe, you are boring. And in negotiation, if you are 100% safe, you are definitely leaving value on the table. Provocative competence means taking a calculated risk to shake things up.
Can you give me an example?
Jay Sheldon asking, "What is my system worth?" That was a provocative move. It was his 20%. It could have completely backfired. The guy could have said, "I don't care about your system, get out." But because he took that small, calculated risk, he unlocked a massive amount of hidden value.
So the advice is, be safe 80% of the time. Use your deal triangle. Be prepared. But save about 20% of your mental bandwidth for asking the stupid question or proposing the crazy deal structure.
Exactly. If you don't risk a little bit of confusion, you'll never find the breakthrough.
Okay, I really like the jazz metaphor. It's collaborative, it's creative, it makes a lot of sense. But let's be real. Sometimes the other guy isn't Miles Davis. Sometimes the other guy is a shark. He doesn't want to make music with you. He wants to eat you.
Right.
What if the negotiation is hostile? Does jazz still work then?
When it gets hostile, Wheeler says we need to shift metaphors. He moves us from the jazz club to the cockpit of a fighter jet. He introduces Colonel John Boyd and his legendary concept, the OODA loop.
I've heard of the OODA loop in military circles and in tech startups. It's legendary. But what does it have to do with me buying a house?
Let's go back to the Korean War.
Hmm.
The U.S. pilots were flying the F-86 Sabre jet. The Soviets were flying the MiG-15. On paper, the MiG was a better plane. It could climb faster, it could turn tighter, and it could fly higher.
So by all logic, the Americans should have been slaughtered.
They should have been. But the historical record shows that the Americans achieved a staggering 10-to-1 kill ratio. For every one American Sabre shot down, they shot down 10 MiGs.
10-to-1. How is that even possible? Was it just much better pilot training?
That was part of it. But a pilot named John Boyd looked at the data and realized it was actually the design of the plane. The F-86 had two small but decisive advantages. One, it had hydraulic controls. It was twitchier. It could transition from a hard left turn to a hard right turn much faster than the MiG, which had heavy manual controls.
So it was more agile.
More agile.
Yep.
And two, it had the bubble canopy. The pilot sat high up in a glass bubble and could see 360 degrees around him. The MiG pilot was buried deep in the fuselage and had huge blind spots.
So the American could see the situation change faster and physically react faster.
Correct. And Boyd codified this into the OODA loop. It stands for observe, orient, decide, and act. And then, and this is the critical part, you loop back to observe immediately. The pilot who cycles through this loop fastest always wins.
Okay, I get observe, look out the window. I get decide, I'm going to shoot. I get act, pull the trigger. But orient, that sounds like corporate jargon. What does it actually mean in practice?
Orient is the most important and most difficult step. It's updating your mental map of reality based on what you just observed. Let's take it to the negotiation table.
Okay.
Observe. You offer a price of $50,000 for your services. You see the other person flinch slightly and look down at their hands. That's the observation.
This is where you interpret that data. A bad orientation is, he hates the price. He thinks it's too high, I need to lower it.
That's the obvious conclusion.
But a good orientation, one based on empathy and curiosity, might be, wait a minute, he didn't look angry, he looked embarrassed. Maybe he doesn't have the authority to approve this amount. Maybe he's worried about looking weak to his boss if he accepts my first offer.
That changes everything. If I orient on price, I immediately lower my offer and lose money. But if I orient on authority, I change my tactic completely.
Right, so then you decide,
Yeah.
I need to give him a way to sell this to his boss and look good. You act. I can tell this is a tricky number, Tell you what if we structured it as a series of smaller monthly payments so it fits under your personal approval limit?
And if you do that fast enough,
You are getting inside his loop. While he is still worrying about how to react to the $50,000 lump sum, you have already moved the conversation to monthly payments. He is now forced to react to you. You are controlling the tempo, you're controlling the reality.
so the winner isn't necessarily the person with the most raw power, it's the person with the fastest mental processor.
Exactly. Agility beats raw power. The MiG had raw power. The Sabre had agility. Be the Sabre.
I love that. Be the saber. That's a t-shirt idea right there. Okay, let's pivot to the process itself. We've talked a lot about the what of the deal, but Wheeler talks a lot about the how we negotiate. There's a study he cites with real estate developers that I found fascinating because it shows how just a few words at the very beginning can change the entire trajectory of a deal.
Oh, this is a great study. They recorded actual negotiations between developers and potential tenants. Same case, same facts, different people. In pair A, the developer opens up and says, I've looked at this lease you sent over. It's incredibly one-sided. Frankly, it's a mess.
Oof.
Aggressive opening.
The tenant immediately snaps back. My lawyers wrote that. It's a standard form. Bang. Instantly they're in a fight. They spent the next hour just arguing over every single comma. The relationship was poisoned from the start.
They started with a no.
Now compare that to pair B. Same terrible one-sided lease. The developer opens with a smile and says, I've read the lease, and I have to say, if I were in your shoes, I would absolutely love this lease. It protects you perfectly. He laughs. The tenant laughs.
Okay, that's much better.
Then the developer says, obviously I can't sign it as is, or my boss would fire me. But I admire the craftsmanship. Let's see if we can figure out a way to make it work from my side, too.
That is just so smooth.
It's not just smooth, it's strategically brilliant. He established a problem-solving norm before they even began discussing the first problem. This connects directly to the research by Amy Cuddy at Harvard on warmth versus competence.
Oh, I know this one. It's the idea that we all walk into a room wanting to look smart, right? To prove our competence. We are obsessed with competence, especially in business. We wear the suit, we use the big words, we bring the thick binder. We want them to think, this person is an expert. I should respect them. But Cuddy's research found that when people evaluate us, they look for warmth first.
They're asking a more primitive question.
We're asking, is this person friend or foe?
Because evolutionarily, it's much more important to know if the guy with the club is going to hit me with it than it is to know if he's good at math.
Precisely. And if you lead with high competence but low warmth, the other person's brain tags you as competent enemy. And the thought process is, he is very smart, and he is going to use his smarts to cheat me. The guard goes up instantly.
So all that posturing I do to look professional and tough is actually hurting me from the start.
It creates resistance. You have to establish warmth first. Small talk about the weather, a self-deprecating joke, finding some small common ground. Once they trust your intent, which is warmth, then, and only then, do they begin to appreciate your skill, which is competence.
The thought shifts to, oh, he's a friend, and he's smart. He can help me solve my problem.
Connect first, impress second. That's the rule.
But, and I feel like I'm the constant pessimist today, what if I try to be warm and they just slap me in the face? What if they use those shadow negotiation tactics? They try to belittle me. You're too expensive. You're too small. We usually work with much bigger firms. It's really hard to be warm when someone is actively insulting you.
It is hard, and our natural instinct is to defend ourselves, but that's a trap. If they say, you're too small to handle this account, and you say, no, we're not, we have 50 employees and a great track record, you are validating their frame. You are now arguing on their turf by their rules. Wheeler suggests a move called turning.
Turning, like in judo.
Exactly like judo. You don't block the force of their attack. You absorb it and redirect it. Let's role play again. Tell me I'm too expensive.
Look, I like your proposal, but your fees are outrageous. You're 20% higher than the market rate.
We are a premium service, yes. And that premium buys you our 24/7 support and our guarantee that the project won't fail. Let's take a quick look at what it would cost you in lost revenue if the cheaper vendor misses the deadline by just 1 month.
I see what you did there. You agreed with the fact you are premium, but you turned it from a cost into a value. You reframed the entire conversation.
Or, if you interrupt me in a meeting,
Interrupt. Yeah, but can you just get to the bottom line?
I'm getting there, but I promise if I skip this step, the bottom line won't make sense. Just give me 2 more minutes, and then you can decide if it's worth it. I'm not fighting you. I'm just gently steering the car back onto the road.
It's about managing the process, not just the content.
Managing the shadow negotiation, the fight for respect and control, is often more important than the actual terms. If you lose the battle for respect at the beginning, you will almost certainly lose the deal at the end.
This brings us to the final and maybe the most philosophical part of the book. How do we learn this stuff? Because it's not straightforward. Wheeler talks about wicked learning, which sounds like something from a Boston movie. My goy's wicked smart.
It's actually a term from the psychologist Robin Hogarth. He distinguishes between kind learning environments and wicked learning environments. Tennis is a kind environment. You hit the ball, it goes out, you see it go out, you get instant, accurate feedback, you adjust your swing for the next shot.
Okay. Simple cause and effect and negotiation.
Negotiation is a wicked environment. The feedback is often delayed, ambiguous, or completely missing. Let's say you are a bully. You scream at a vendor, they get scared and give you a discount just to get you to shut up and leave.
Okay.
You walk away thinking, screaming works. I am a great negotiator.
You got it.
Yes.
But in reality,
that vendor goes back to their office, does the absolute bare minimum on your project, overcharges you on every single change order, and badmouths you to everyone else in the industry. You won the deal, but you lost enormous value. But because that feedback is hidden from you, you learned the wrong lesson. You keep screaming in your next negotiation.
This is the story of Richard and Margaret in the book, right?
Yes, it's a perfect illustration. Richard is the shark. He thinks he's winning every deal, but he's leaving so much money on the table because nobody wants to brainstorm creative solutions with him. They just want him to leave. Margaret is the collaborator. She might lose a deal here and there because she refuses to lie or bully someone. She feels like a failure. But her reputation for integrity is growing. People want to deal with her.
So in a wicked environment, you can't judge your performance just by the immediate result. Did I get the yes? Might be the wrong question to ask.
A bad yes is so much worse than a good no. If you sign a deal that destroys your reputation or is impossible to implement, you lost. You have to judge yourself by your process. Did I prepare correctly? Was I agile? Did I listen effectively? Did I maintain my integrity?
Which leads us to the ethics of it all. In a world of chaos, improvisation, and OODA loops, is there really room for being a good person, or is that just a weakness that will be exploited?
Wheeler's very clear on this point. Ethics isn't a luxury. It's a long-term strategic asset. He quotes Lakhdar Brahimi, the famous UN diplomat. This is a man who negotiated in Afghanistan, Iraq, South Africa, the hardest places on earth. He says a negotiator needs two seemingly contradictory things: arrogance and humility.
That feels like our final paradox for the day.
You need the arrogance to believe that you can solve a problem that everyone else says is impossible. You need the ego and the confidence to step into the mess in the first place. But you need the humility to know that you cannot force the outcome. You cannot control the other person. You can only control yourself and your own actions.
And if you lie, if you bluff your way through a deal,
You might win today, but negotiation is almost always a repeated game. Your reputation enters the room long before you do. If you have a reputation for being honest, even when it hurts, people will trust you when you finally say, "This is my best and final offer." If you have a reputation as a bluffer, even your truth will sound like a lie.
wow, okay, my brain is officially full. We have gone from Jay Sheldon selling his cable company to jazz musicians comping on the piano to fighter pilots in the skies over Korea to ER doctors having panic attacks. This is a massive, massive toolkit. Let's try to boil this down. If you, the listener, are walking into a negotiation tomorrow, what are the key takeaways?
Okay, let's build a final checklist. 1, preparation.
Correct.
Ditch the single bottom line. Build a deal triangle. Calculate your equivalent packages so you know the value of the non-monetary stuff.
2, disaster check. Do a premortem. Assume failure to find the hidden cracks. Then assume success to find the hidden opportunities.
3, emotion. Before you go in, use the 6-step centering exercise. Name the emotion, step to the other side. Get curious.
4, in the room. Your state of mind should be calm and alert. Your strategy should be warmth first, competence second.
5, the process. Listen to comp, which means to validate their reality, not just to reload for your next point. And use provocative competence. Take that calculated 20% risk to shake things up.
6, tactics. When things get tough, use the OODA loop. Orient on the meaning of their behavior, not just the behavior itself. Get inside their decision cycle.
And finally, 7, mindset. Don't judge your success just by getting the yes. Judge it by your process, your integrity, and the health of the relationship you walk away with.
That is pure gold. I'm going to leave you with one final thought. Wheeler asks us to fundamentally shift how we see the person sitting across the table. Are they an opponent you need to defeat? Or are they a fellow improviser, a fellow musician?
Hmm.
If you treat it like a battle, you might win, but you'll be exhausted and you'll have to watch your back forever. But if you treat it like jazz, if you listen, if you build on their notes, you might just compose something beautiful that neither of you could have written alone.
And that is where the real value is created. Not in the fighting, but in the co-creating.
Make friends with the chaos. Thank you so much for breaking this down with me today.
My pleasure. It was a lot of fun.
And to you, our listener, try the centering exercise. Next time you feel that tightness in your chest before a tough conversation, just stop, name it, and pivot to curiosity. Let us know how it goes. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye, everyone. Stay agile.